BC United and the BC Conservatives have been engaged in talks to find some common ground during this year's provincial election campaign. But in the past hour, this announcement from BC United leader Kevin Falcon.
Unfortunately, I have to stand and tell you today that John Rustad ultimately made the decision that that's not something that he wants to proceed with, and he is going to put his personal ambitions as he views them above the best interests of the province.
So Kevin Falcon did speak to media. What did he have to say?
Okay, so first of all, he said that any non-compete deal that they were discussing with the BC Conservatives is dead. And he basically laid it on the feet of John Rustad, the BC Conservative leader. He's blaming him. He said that 2 meetings took place, one on May 2nd and one on May 22nd. That was just 2 days ago. And in that time, he said the deal is off. He said the first meeting was very productive. The party set out a non-compete framework. He even released it to media. There was a lot in it. He said, you know, a lot of good work was done on it, but ultimately John Rustad rejected it. When you take a look at some of the framework, some of the details include they wouldn't merge, but they would not attack each other during the election campaign. And the parties would not run candidates against incumbent MLAs. So that means 15 seats for BC United would be protected and 2 for the BC Conservatives. But that seems really heavily weighted in BC United's favor as well. And then if both of them have a combined seat total of more than the NDP, then after the election, they would form a coalition, and the one with more seats would become the premier, and the one with less seats would become the deputy premier. And so, as I said, Falcon said that John Rustad ultimately didn't agree to those terms, and he rejected it.
Can I ask you about his tone in that press conference? What did you take from that?
Well, I think he was very decisive. And I was told, even before this news conference, that this would be the last time we're going to be hearing about this sort of deal. But it's funny, there are a lot of issues that we've been told this is the last time we're going to hear about it, but then we're hearing about it.
Still some time left. Now, in very recently, just in the last few minutes, we have received a statement from BC Conservative leader John Rustad. I'm just going to read a few lines from this statement. The first line, or the third line down, is of note. Quote, Kevin Falcon declined our offers in December 2023 to discuss a possible merger with a single message stating, and I quote, F off. Okay, a lot of animosity there. And he says time and time again, and in this offer, Kevin Falcon has demonstrated he will always put himself first and will do absolutely anything for power. And he goes on to make some more statements. And he said, as I have previously promised, the Conservative Party of BC is committed to running candidates in all 93 provincial ridings. And unlike Kevin Falcon, I intend to keep my promises. My goodness. A lot of personal animosity.
That's right. Well, you have to remember that BC United leader Kevin Falcon basically kicked out John Rustad from his party for his views on climate science. And I should mention to you that Kevin Falcon named names. He named the people who were making this backroom deal with BC United in the background. So there are actually people involved, a framework involved. So he kind of blew the lid off what was going on behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah. And the fact that, you know, just late breaking, John Rustad ultimately turned it down. What does this mean for the election, do you think?
Well, it's going to be a very competitive one, and it could get, it could get quite contentious, especially with these two parties. The whole purpose of this deal would have been to create an atmosphere where they're not dividing the right, where they would be working in cooperation to get some of those votes. But ultimately, if they're going to battle it out like that, it could give the BC NDP even more of a majority, right, if they're splitting the vote on the right. But Falcon clearly said his party's values don't really align with some of the BC Conservative candidates' views. And ultimately, Falcon really didn't want to look ahead to the election results because he was asked again and again about the coalition. Well, what if there are candidates for the BC Conservatives whose values you don't align with? Why would you, form a coalition with them? And he really sort of staved that off.
Okay, lots to watch for. I'm sure the NDP is watching this closely today.
Yes.
Meera, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
That's CBC's Provincial Affairs reporter, Meera Bains.